G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and today we're taking a drawing that was done by the very talented Evan from Cartoon Block and we're going to be colouring it in, painting it in Adobe Photoshop. Now I will preface just by letting you know that Cartoon Block is a really great place to check out some tutorials. Evan's got a really cool style and he goes through and does some really good tutorials, so make sure to check out his work. And so we're going to take this artwork that he's done, and the link to his tutorial on drawing this is in the description, and I'll also make an annotation somewhere, and we're going to turn this into a refined final digital artwork. So the first thing is first, I've got this and I want to just kind of move it around a bit in a place that I want to have it. So I'm going to select my lasso tool and just trace around this character quite roughly, right click and free transform it. I'm going to make him a bit bigger, move him towards the middle like that and hit enter. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer above this, and this layer is the background layer and it's really not going to do any moving. I'm going to select a black, okay, with my brush, and I'm just going to go through and do the line work. So zooming in slightly, I'm going to select a line weight that works well. 15 should do it. No, it's a bit thick. Let's go with 12. And I really want it to be smooth line work. So it takes quite a lot of practice to getting used to doing hand-drawn brush strokes in digital programs like this. So if you're new to it and you have a Wacom, it can be quite difficult. If you don't have a Wacom, it'll be even more difficult. But everyone's kind of got their own place of where they're at, and you kind of go from there. So as you can see, I'm taking my time to go follow this line work, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to speed up the process so you can see me going through it, and I'm going to recap once I'm done. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've finished my line work. If you'd like a little bit more of a resource on how I go about using line work and creating smooth lines, I'll link in the description and in an annotation to a tutorial that I did on smooth lines and how to create smooth lines digitally. But let's not spend too much time on that. I want to talk about the painting itself. So now that I've finished creating this line work, I've got it separate to this art that Evan has done. So I'm going to create a layer between these two layers, and using the paint bucket, I'm just going to fill it in with a blank white. And that leaves me with, on one layer, my blank white, and a layer above it, the line work. So they're separated. I can paint underneath it without disrupting the line work. So I'm now going to create some different fields of color on this character so that I can refine it and create some really cool sort of cell shaded, shading. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new layer. I'm going to call this, I'm going to name it Skin. Now I'm going to go back onto my line work layer. I'm going to select my magic wand and I'm going to select everywhere that the skin color is going to show up. And you want to make sure that you get all of it. You don't want to miss anything. And it's okay if you miss little bits or if it's hard to select everything exactly, because we can refine it, but just for the general feel, you want to make sure you have everything selected. And then I'm going to go back to this skin layer and I'm going to select a skin tone that works well. I like that one. I'm going to first of all increase my selection, because if I fill this in now, notice if I hit the paint bucket thing and then deselect it, you can see that there are all these little white bits left. Okay, so I want to undo that, and to avoid that, making sure that it's on the layer under the line work layer, because you want to be able to bleed over the edges of this selection without it disrupting the line work. I'm going to go select, modify, expand, and I'm going to expand it by 3 pixels. Now, when I right click on it and hit fill, I get more of it. It's closer to the line without leaving those unsightly white lines. Now there are some of them and I can just go in and paint them in with my brush. Okay, lovely. So I've painted the base of the skin, I'm going to go through and do the base of the other colors. And I'll just keep this amount of zoom, which is fine. I'm just going to select the areas where the orange of his clothes show. So there's that. And I think that's about it. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new layer above the skin layer. We'll call it orange. Oops, I spelt it wrong. And I'm going to select an orange, that works. Let's go something like that. Hit M, right click, fill. Oh no, I missed a step, sorry. I want to select, modify, expand 3 pixels and then fill. There we go. Okay, so once again, making sure that this is under the line work layer. I'm just going to name this just so it's clear. And if you're confused or you want to kind of see everything for yourself, I always keep the reference files for the work that I do free for you to download and have a look yourself. Have a bit of a play around with this that I'm doing now, and you can see for yourself how I've done it, and it's just a bit of a reference for you. So there you go, I've done the orange, and there's just only a few things left to do. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this blue. I'm going to select the magic wand. On the line work layer, pick all the areas that are going to be a nice dark blue. Got the belt. And then go back to my blue layer, select, modify, expand 3 pixels. Then hit M, which is the shortcut for the marquee tool. And the reason I do that is so that when I hit M, the right click brings up these marquee options, which has fill. So then I can hit fill and go foreground color. Whoops, no, I need to select a color first. I need a blue, bit of a dark but mid-tone sort of blue, and fill. There we go, so I'm happy with that. And then aside from filling in a few tiny little white bits that you miss, because you kind of generally miss 1 or 2 small bits. Oh, there's a couple on the orange layer that I missed. Just so you know, shortcuts are really good to learn. So the shortcut for the eyedropper, if you want to select a color that's already here, is I. So you just hold it, click, and then you go back to B for brush, and then I can go in and paint it. Making sure that you're on the right layer. And I missed a tiny bit up here on the blue, so I'm going to go on the blue layer, hit I, select it, hit B, paint it in. Okay, so when you're doing digital artwork, in general, if you're doing this sort of style, if it's that sort of, you know, clear line work, cell shaded style, you really want to make sure it's crisp and you don't miss any spots. So finally, I want to make one more layer, and I'm just going to call this misc, as in miscellaneous, and I'm going to use this to fill in just the random things. So I'm going to select in the eyebrows, and I won't select the teeth because I won't need to paint that yet. I'm just going to go into misc, select, modify, expand 3 pixels, hit M, right click and fill. Okay. Whoops, I want it black, so I'll fill that again. Bam. Okay, so if I zoom out, you can see that this is the base work of what I want to do. And this alone looks pretty good. Now, how can we make this look better? How can we really, you know, bring it out, do some shading, make it look really, you know, pop out? We're missing a few details as well, like the dots on his head, the whole Shaolin thing. So we're going to go through and start adding these details. So I'm going to go down to my skin layer, and this is a technique that lots of different people use. Some people don't, some people have their own methods, but I prefer to use this, and it's called clipping masks. Okay, so I'm not sure how common it is in other programs, but for those of you who have Adobe Photoshop, you create a new layer above the layer that is the base, and then you hold Alt and click the line joining these 2 layers. So while holding Alt, you see this little symbol appears. You want to click when that symbol appears, and then anything you paint, let's say I scribble, see how it's only appearing within the confines of that skin layer. Okay, so that's my lovely scribble. Okay, so for an example as to how this is useful, I'm going to select a darker shade for the skin, bring up my brush size, and as you can see, I don't need to worry about painting over the lines. I can simply just paint, okay? So that's really useful in that you don't need to worry about painting over lines, you just kind of go through and do that. There are other, like I said, there are other methods people can use. Some people use the marquee tool and just keep the marquee selected. Doesn't matter, this is how I'm going about it. I'm just gonna go through and paint where I want to paint. So here, and now I'm not entirely sure how to do the eyes, because some versions of Krillin have the eyes painted white and some don't and have it the skin color. And I think the most common for the show itself is having the eyes just merge with the skin color. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to paint it white. But I want to shade in the bits that go darker on the skin and keep the elevated bits, like on the ears, on the edge there, the normal skin color. So I'm just going to shade in these darker bits of the ears, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to do under the mouth. I'm going to zoom in so you can see clearer. Another little shortcut, if you care to know, is when you have your brush selected, you can right click and then you have all your brush options. You can pick your different brushes and pick your size and your hardness. So rather than going up here to change all your settings, I just right click and change my brush size as I want to alter it. That's much more easy to access. That was a weird way of saying it. Okay, so now I want to place these 6 dots on his forehead, but I want to see where Evan placed them. So I'm going to hide the skin layer and the white layer underneath, and that's where they've placed them. Okay, so I'm going to bring the skin layer back and lower the transparency. And then on my clipping mask layer, using that skin color, I'm just going to paint exactly where he drew them so that they're in the right place. Okay, so now I can bring the opacity of the base skin layer back up, and that's where I want them to be. Okay, so I'll round them off slightly, and now I can just bring that white layer back and have everything back how it was, and I'm quite happy with that. Okay, and now that I've got my head shading done, I'm going to go through and do the shades and the shadows of the other areas of Krillin's body. So here on the shoulder, at the back, follow it around on the arm, and here on the forearm. Now you kind of get a feel as to how to go about shading these things the more you do it. So it's a mixture of coming with experience and also learning just practical exercises. But a lot of it is really how you interpret it, how you perceive space. Now remember, you can download the reference file and you can give this a go yourself. You can give it a go of doing the line work, going through these steps, follow this tutorial as a video in the background, and see how you go in recreating it, which might be a good exercise for you if you want to learn how to paint in Photoshop and you haven't given it a go yet. So I'm just doing these edges. I want to make sure all the shades, all the shadow is on the same side. So it's here on the left, all the parts of his body. Shading the knuckles. And then this side of his hand. And all of his thumb. So that is his skin. Okay, now what I want to do to make this pop a bit more, because that already, as you can see, without that there, it's quite flat. But then with my shadow there, it adds quite a lot. Now I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm going to add another layer. And you'll notice it's a normal layer, so I'm going to add it to the clipping mask by alt-clicking that line. And I'm going to select a really light skin tone. So I'm going to select here on my color picker and find a light skin tone, and about there's good. And this is what is called rim lighting, okay? So you paint right along the edges of a drawing, of a work of art, just this thin line. And this demonstrates a second source of lighting, okay? So the first source of lighting is this. We've got the light coming in in this direction, okay? But this rim light shows that there's a source of light directly behind him, and this makes the image really pop in a really simple way, and I use it all the time. I probably overuse it. I don't even know if it's possible to overuse it because it's just so damn cool. And similarly to the shade, you want to make sure that you're consistent, so you don't put it in the wrong place. You want to have it where the light from behind him wouldn't be blocked, and you don't want it to be too obnoxious. I generally like to think less is more. Just keep it nice and thin and use it only in essential places. I'm going to finally go through, add it to the back here and the arm, and that will be the skin. So I'm pretty much done. This is how I've gone through and shaded the skin. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to go through now and do the same thing with the orange and the blue layers. So I'm going to create 2 layers within a clipping mask. The first layer will be a layer of shadow. I'm going to go through, do some shadow, and then the next one will be a rim light. Go through and do a lighter shade, and I'm going to fast forward through that so you'll see the process just kind of done in a way that you can see how it's done at a faster rate. Okay, I've done that, and now you can see very quickly how much of a difference that makes. So this is the image, whoops, completely flat with no clipping masks. We have the skin, the orange, and the blue, and that makes a massive difference, right? Really makes the image pop. We add 2 elements of shadow. We add the first main element of shadow with the soft sort of mid-tone, and then the shadow. And then on the very edge, we have the rim lighting, which shows some light coming from the back, and it creates this really dynamic feel of the image. And we're pretty much done as a general sort of rule. If we want to have a nice crisp image, this is a very easy to see sort of crisp image, you know, so we don't need to do too much more than that. But I'm just going to show you a couple of things that I might do to make it pop just a little bit more. And then to create a bit of an environmental effect to have it so it's just not on this blank white background. So the first thing I'm going to do is in my skin clipping mask, add 1 more layer, and pressing I to select that main mid-tone to highlight sort of skin, I'm going to select a lighter tone. I'm going to select my default brush and make it large with 0% hardness, about that large. And I'm going to make the opacity down to, let's say about 8%. Okay, so it's going to be really light. And I'm just going to tap along. And I'm going to be continually tapping just again and again and add this hue, this gradient hue to a lighter color. Okay, just along that edge. And I'm going to do that along a few edges. I'm going to do it along this arm, along the hand. And this adds just a little bit more of a dynamic feel, so it's not entirely flat. Okay, so I can up this a bit if I want a bit more of an effect to, let's say, 15%. Along here, along the back arm. I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm going to select that shadow and get a darker color. And now if I just went ahead and did this, it would go over the highlight that I have. So I'm going to drag this to the layer underneath. So now when I paint just in the shadowy area, like this, it doesn't paint over my, what did I call it? It doesn't paint over my rim light. So now I can just add a little touch of shadow and a little touch of highlight that isn't completely flat. Adds a bit of a gradient hue. And you can see that that really makes a nice difference. It makes it look a little bit more like poster art than just television line work and cell shaded color art. Okay, so I can go through and do that now to the other layers. So I've got the orange. I'm going to select this and get a lighter tone. Oops. And add it to the edge here on the orange clipping mask layer. Then I'm going to do the same with the darker tone. Fill in here towards the bottom of the leg. And then the same finally with the blue. So adding a clipping mask layer, selecting that mid-tone and getting a lighter one, doing on the edge. It's quite a quick sort of thing you can do just to make the color pop. Make the lighting quite clearly communicated. So I'm very, very happy with that, and I'm just about done. The last thing I'm going to do is mess around with the background. So zooming out to fit on the screen, I'll zoom out just a bit more. I see the whole image here, and I'm very happy with that. I think it looks really cool. I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this Krillin. And I'm going to click and drag all of these layers into there, including the line work. And I can collapse that folder. So I can just hide and make him visible as I want to. I'm going to make another layer, not a layer, sorry, another folder. I'm going to call this background. All right, and now this is going to be interesting, and it should be fairly simple. I'm going to do this in a few steps. The first thing I want to do is create some flashy sort of lines, some perspective lines. So selecting the polygonal lasso tool, I need a central point. So I'm going to bring down the opacity of Krillin so I can see behind him as I work. And in a layer in the background, I'm going to, just for reference, create a bit of a point. So I'm going to create a small but 100% visible point right there. There you go, that's all I need. And now I can select my polygonal lasso tool, start it in that point, bring it out to the edge, come across a bit, and then go in to that starting point. Okay, so now I've got this selected area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this. Let's find a blue, like a light sky blue like this. Do I want blue or do I want... Maybe yellow would look better. Let's go yellow. Like a nice golden yellow. Fill that in. Okay, now I'm just going to repeat this process several times. Some of them, like this one, are going to be thinner. Some of them are going to be thicker. I'll do this one, can be a bit thicker. And just make it nice and random. So thin, really thin. And some of them have a bigger space between, medium size, and you get the idea. So I'm kind of just going through and doing this, creating some random sunbeams, I suppose you could call them. Okay, so I've finished painting my sunbeams. I'm going to create another layer underneath my sunbeams. I'm going to paint it, let's say a nice rich orange, nice bright orange. Okay, so now when I select my Krillin folder, bring it up to 100% opacity, it doesn't look like my my coloring worked, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm going to have to do that again. Select my white and come in here and paint in the teeth. There we go. Because I don't want to see the rainbow through his teeth. That's not a rainbow. Sunbeams. That's what I meant. Zoom out. Okay. That's what we want. So I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks pretty cool. Now, rather than the background being flat, I also want to make that kind of, you know, have a gradient to it as well. So I'm going to make a layer on top of my sunbeams. I'm going to select my gradient tool, which is by clicking and holding where the paint bucket is. I'm going to select a radial gradient by pressing that icon there. And I'm going to go across here to the transparent one, which is the second option. And with the white, I can click and drag from that center point, and as you can see, it creates that sort of circular glow. Okay, so I use this to create a flare, and it makes it look like a really sort of nice popping out glow. It's like this big flash. It's quite cool. I like it. And then I'm going to create one more layer, and I'm going to make it a flat gradient, so it goes like this. And I'm going to select a dark orange, sort of mixed in with a bit of red. Okay, and now I can paint that gradient in. Okay, so it's kind of like doing the reverse of what we just did. Now we don't want it to be too strong. So once we've painted it, I can bring down the opacity to about 30%. I think 30% works well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I painted Krillin. So I hope you enjoyed it. A big special thanks to Evan from Cartoon Block for collaborating with me and creating this image, which is really cool. Check out his tutorials and make sure you subscribe to me and check out my channel for any more painting or animation or art tutorials that you might be interested in. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time, I'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy my videos. You can download the reference files from this tutorial by clicking the link in the description. And remember to share any art, animation or game you make on Newgrounds.com. Until next time, see you later.